Hello and welcome back to Game & Muscle videos. Just today, Forza 6 Apex was updated with full wheel support. Now I was super excited to get in and start driving Forza with my Club Sport V2 pedals, my shifter, my button box and everything else, perhaps over optimistically, because it turns out this is of course a complete console port. So by full wheel support, it's wheel and the pedals that come with that wheel. So you're going to need to get your Thrustmaster or Club Sport pedals and plug them into your wheelbase, because it won't work as a separate USB device, or at least I couldn't get it to work. So here you see in the little capture in the lower corner, we had to plug in the old T300 internet cable pedals into the base. But once we'd done that, we were ready to go. Now it's worth saying the default pedals for the T300 are potentiometer based, and I'm used to using the fancy Club Sport V2 pedals with a load cell brake. And, well, they're just high quality, but they do cost more, and you don't get them free with a wheel, so you get what you pay for. So initially, we did have to get used to using these potentiometer brake and pedal, but after a few minutes, we started to get there. Now, the interesting question, of course, is what is Forza 6 Apex like to drive with a steering wheel? Well, after fiddling with the settings, trying to turn down the dampening, turning down the force feedback a little bit, because by default it was causing clipping and the T300 to heat up to such a temperature that I could probably cook a full English on it, we got in the game and did some racing. We picked Brands Hatch and the BMW Z4 because it's a track I'm really familiar with and a car that I also know well. And, well, jumping in, and the first thing you notice driving with the steering wheel is that the cars are extremely ill-defined and boaty in their handling. I have to say this, out of all the driving games I've played, it's really, really floaty with a wheel. In fact, the wheel actually makes it feel more floaty than if you're playing with a gamepad. Now, of course, if you're playing with a gamepad, it has assists on it, so it's a whole different ball game. What a wheel does do, though, and benefits you with, is that you have pedals with a lot of analog distance to them and throw to them, giving you far finer control over the accelerator and brake. And I think you can drive easier, or smoother at least, with a wheel than you ever could with a gamepad, even if you were super duper pro with a gamepad. And I know there's some absolutely amazing drivers that you know, really good with a gamepad, but I just think, logically speaking, a steering wheel will make this game easier to play. Unfortunately, as I say, it does highlight the sort of limited aspect to the handling characteristic of the vehicles. Now, in terms of the force feedback, you get nice sort of vibrations and bumps. It's all a bit overdone, a bit heavy-handed. You do get a moderate degree of self-aligning torque or correction from the force feedback, up until you go over the limit, and then it's all just out the window, but we'll go into that in a bit. And you do get a little bit of force feedback in terms of the resistance for the loading of how much grip you've got. So there's aspects to the force feedback that are actually quite nice, and it certainly adds to the immersion of the game, and it does make it more involving and communicate more of what's going on in the game for you to then respond to it. Now, the over-the-limit handling and just how the cars handle when the back end comes out, in Forza, to me, just makes no sense at all. It's as if they've designed the game with the expectation that you don't drive cars with any counter steer. And if you do, it's not in any way that I recognise from any driving simulator or somewhat realistic driving game I've played. Basically, if you get the back end out and you're in a situation where you want to apply a bit of counter steer and balance the car through corners and do subtle things, which are where a lot of the enjoyment comes from with more realistic driving games, just forget it. It's not worth it. You'll be slower, the car's pretty much out of control, the force feedback gives you almost no information, and really, the way they've designed it is, if you've gone over the limit or the back end really comes out, you just have to sit back, patiently have a cup of tea, dip a few biscuits, and wait for it to come back to you, and then carry on your merry way. Now, I'm sure they'll have drift cars that are specifically set up to drift and slide, but what I'm talking about is more just the subtle aspects of control that you'd expect from a race car. And as you see there, just the way we lost it, just it didn't make much sense to me at all. Now, I have fiddled with the force feedback settings. I did dial the force feedback down, we turned dampening off, and just gone through a whole lot of the settings. I really just couldn't get it feeling particularly responsive. And as I say, the nature of the game to me just seems that the design of it is you have to drive very much under the limit or in a very sort of understeery fashion to get the most out of it in the most predictable, stable, and that's probably going to be the quickest way to drive in Forza. So ultimately, the wheel support in Forza, it's there if you've got a wheel that has pedals that plug into that wheel. If you've got separate pedals, then you're out of luck. So they really need to sort of do proper control input, so you can use different devices, and really take advantage of all that kit that people have, or some sad people have that spend too much time playing driving games. I'd actually think I'd rather just play Forza with a gamepad, to be honest. Though you do get more control with a wheel, it just highlights the issues with the sim. Oh, another issue that I've completely overlooked is if you're in the cockpit view, the steering just doesn't line up at all, and I'm not sure if it's just a visual thing, but I also get the impression this might also add to the boaty aspect of it, that the steering is delayed. The actual input of the wheel is delayed to how it's affecting the car. So all in all, I think you're better off playing Forza with a gamepad, and ideally with the Xbox One or one of the recent Xbox gamepads, because that has really nice haptic rumble, so you know if you're doing too much braking and too much accelerating. And it's just that the game's been designed for a gamepad. You can play it with a wheel now on PC, and you could have always played it with console with a wheel, but it's a gamepad game, so don't get too excited. But I hope that gave you an overview of the wheel support, the new wheel support in Forza 6 Apex on PC for Windows 10. Sorry I didn't have better news, but there you go. I've got to be honest. Don't forget to click the subscribe button if you enjoyed this video. Also like it, and drop us a comment if there's anything that you have to get off your mind. It could just be that it's a rainy, miserable day. I don't know. First built in 1969 and then upgraded with its trademark alien grip strips 30 years later in 1999, the Paul Ricard track has become one of the most popular test venues, host to multiple Formula 1 Grand Prix, and more recently the European Le Mans Series.